I was very much in a fantasy world. I would sit in class and doodle and fantasize and dream. So I was always connected to, in some way or another, to my imagination. That's where I lived most of the time. And somehow I made it through school anyway. And in that way of imagining, your mind takes you beyond what is ordinary. And the more I began to see the contrast between what is so-called normative or ordinary and my little world inside my mind, I began to realize that there's no accident in having a imagination, a fantasy. This is like the visions of the ancient prophets, who even in times of very severe war and conquest of the countries in which they lived, continued to envision that there would be the possibility of peace in the world, and beating your swords into plowshares and not teaching nation to nation war anymore. And all those ancient prophecies, they didn't happen in Berkeley. They happened in places of great turmoil. So the power of imagination was very much inspiring to me, and so was the tradition in which I was raised, which is very full of imagination and wild imagination of interpretation. And then I did some pretty major life changes. I was raised ultra-Orthodox and eventually became ultra-Flexodox, because you imagine. I imagined because I was practicing one way and living, and then reading the ancient teachings, I realized that they were a little bit more flexible than the way we are today, in the way they were thinking so open-mindedly. And then I read this really great story in the ancient Jewish oral tradition that we wrote down. See, we have a written oral tradition. And it's a story about why the raven hops. And that was a very inspiring story for me, and it still is. And the story is it's a very short story. One day the raven was walking about in the way the raven walks, and noticed a pigeon, a dove, and was very enamored by the way the dove was walking. It walked with great sense of regal royalty, majesty, very proud of itself. And so the raven got jealous and said, gee, I want to learn how to walk like that. And so the raven attempted to do so and started trying to walk like a dove, and consequently kept tipping over, falling, losing its balance, tumble, tossing. And then eventually all the animals of the forest gathered around to watch this spectacle of the raven trying to walk like a dove. When the raven realized that he was being a laughing stock of all the fellow creatures, he stopped and left the scenario, and then decided, forget it, I can't walk like the dove, I'll just have to walk like a raven. But unfortunately, the raven forgot how to walk like a raven, being so immersed in trying to walk like the dove. And so from then on, the raven hops. And the lesson of the teaching, this very ancient story, is, so many times as the world progresses and civilization progresses, and cultures evolve and continue to evolve beyond their original kernel or seed of beginnings, we lose our sense of who we really are at our core. We become like everybody else. They're doing it this way, we'll do it that way too, or we'll try to do something similar. And then we forget who we really are. And it's very important to realize that each of us is an original, and there's no one ever going to be like us in the future, and there never was anyone like us in the past. So my way of teaching, and along with Miriam, we teach together, our way has always been to help people through these teachings to restore as much of the very deeply embedded memory of their very core self, not as what has been acculturated for them. We're born and we're incubated, and then we're educated, and then we're graduated, and then we're hired and retired. We don't have time to really sense, who am I outside of everything that has defined me? Am I who I am by definition of my culture, my religion, my environment, my family? Well, there must be another identity that I was before I even came to all these influences. And to find one's core self, one's core gift, one's unique self, and to work from there. And this is very much the essence of one of our oldest stories of our ancestor way back 4,000 years ago, Abraham, who was told to leave in a vision. He was told, Lech lecha me'artzecha, mimoladatecha, mebeit avicha. Go to yourself, it says in the Hebrew, not in English. In English it says, get thee forth. I don't know what that means. Get thee fifth, get thee sixth. But in the Hebrew it says, Lech lecha, go to yourself, away from your birthplace, away from your father's house, away from your country, to the place that I will then be able to show you. We're always looking for where to go, what to do, what's my purpose. But what stands in the way of our seeing what that might be is all these layers of well-meaning cultures and communities and family that has blocked us from seeing who we really are. There's an old teaching by Antichos, who lived in the 2nd century BCE. He was a great Hebrew master. And they asked him, what is the meaning of life? What is the purpose of life, Master? Tell us. And he said, the purpose of life is to really know that there isn't any. Because if you are going to focus on purpose, then you're going to lose sight of the gift of every moment in your life. So a very basic principle is the appreciation of the moment. We blindly follow this oracle we each have in our homes called the calendar. We make plans for next Wednesday, next year. I got an appointment 2 Thursdays from now. It's as if we know we're really going to be around, but we really don't know. We feel very immortal, and we really it's important, I feel, that we cherish the moment, because the moment is infinite. It's there forever. Whatever we do in any given moment is infinite. It's our entire life. And all of us know cognitively, intellectually, that we're going to expire someday, like a credit card, in the way that we know ourselves, in our bodies that we know. And like Miriam was teaching about, this is why it's important to connect to that infinity of the moment, to connect with your being, your core soul, because that is infinite. That always was and always will be. And so that no matter what happens around you, the world will come to an end, or it might not come to an end. Doesn't matter in regards to the importance of realizing the infinity of your being, that you will always be. And the living and dying is it's referred to by the ancient masters, like King Solomon in his song that he wrote for the doors or the birds. For everything there is a season, right? They never give him credit for that, but it's his words. And he did not write, there's a time to live and a time to die. His wording was very specific. There's a time to be born and a time to die, because the belief is you never stop living. You're either birthing or you're dying, and dying is birthing into another reality. We died in the spirit world, and we were born into the womb world. Then we died in the womb world after 9 months, and then we were born into this world. And one day we will die in this world and be born into, who knows? That's the great mystery. But the teaching of Antigos was, don't preoccupy yourself with what is going to be tomorrow, to the neglect of the gift of what it is today, what you have today. Yeah, there is a growing anxiety. People are, number one, we are exposed like we never were before in our history to the information highway. We know what's going on all around the world, any one of us. We don't have to be a CIA agent to know what's going on in Bermuda or Burma, even farther. We internet, the webs, CNN, CBS, MNS, all, we're exposed to it all the time. That alone, creates a lot of anxiety that 200 years ago we may not have had. We just continue farming and we had no idea what was going on in Europe or in Asia or in Africa. So everything was cool. Everything is at peace where I am. But now we're like interwoven with all the trauma and turmoil that's going on in other parts of the world. We can't escape it. We can still celebrate because we are safe so far here, but we know deep inside of us that there's something going on here that's spreading like wildfire and moving things. And Miriam often talks about her sense years ago of how time was expediting, was moving faster and faster. And I began to realize that, wow, this really is true. Our sense of time is moving very fast, which explains why the iPhone 2 has turned into the iPhone 3 before you could even finish learning how to use the iPhone 2. And now it's the iPhone 4. I think there's an iPhone 5 coming up. Everything is going very fast. And what would have taken us centuries to evolve technologically is now taking us moments, minutes. And I think that's it's a nice thing to celebrate that we're able to do this, but I also think it's a sign. It's a signal to us that something is moving very fast toward a climax, and resiliency is very important to have during this time. To again remember that no matter what is going to happen, we're all a part of it, and it's not going to end. It's not going to end. We're all a part of it. And it's also an opportunity to look inside and see what is my war, what is my Armageddon inside my own being, my own life, my family. We're always very quick to protest against war outside, but yet we don't deal much with the wars inside ourselves, inside our homes. And I think that our message would be, during this time of great turmoil, what we can do to contribute to easing that turmoil and perhaps even slowing it down and perhaps even quenching it altogether, extinguishing it altogether, is to do the peace work at home. Do it right here, within oneself, within one's family, within one's friends. The more we do that, we believe it's going to ripple. Everything each of us does in the world does have a rippling effect. If we're in turmoil at home or in ourselves, it ripples. And in some way we're burning down an embassy. But if we work toward creating a more peace, more harmonization of soul and body, of self and other, here at home in our own personal lives, that will ripple out. And that will extinguish the fires that are fanning around the world. Really believe that.